Hello and a very warm welcome to External Affairs. I'm Finn, one of your hosts, joined as always by Tom, James, and Drew, but unfortunately not Lucas, who
He
is
chose a workshop.
yeah.
He chose his career or some extracurricular thing that I don't care about over external affairs.
It's
but
gutting.
I think
How
I'll
could
forgive
he?
him.
How could he? External
How
affairs
could he?
is way more important.
So as you can hear here, we have the one and only Mathias La Pira. You probably all
Good
have all
afternoon,
met him.
everyone, and welcome on Expression FM. I am Mathias. Sorry for my voice today. One of your hosts on Festivita.
Yes, but I guess external affairs is sort of a political extension of Festivita. Could you tell us a bit more about Festivita?
Yes, so
Yeah.
basically Festivita is a show where we're here to showcase every different culture on campus, the different international societies that are on campus to
Mhm.
show
Yeah.
everyone that there's a lot of things going on related to international talk, which I personally think that is no advertised enough. You want to travel around the world, you want to discover food, music,
That's really cool.
about different countries. So international students are here for that, and we have someone in the studio who will be coming very soon to Festivita, Alexander from Norway. And yeah, I mean, officially on Festivita, our kind of goal is not to really talk
Mhm.
about political opinion, but talking about facts, about politics, how the system works, this kind of stuff. This is definitely something
Yeah.
we can talk on Festivita. But yeah, today anyway, we're not here for Festivita. We're here for
Mm.
External Affairs, and I'm looking forward to
Awful.
the whole show.
Yeah. So the exact topic is French politics. I mean, this is a huge thing. We can talk about anything. I'm really looking forward to hearing your opinions on it. But just kind of to start with some. Well, let's just start with how would you describe French politics in 3 words? You think, or however many words you want.
So before the show,
I'd say we stick to 3 just to
Stick to 3. Yeah. Yeah.
So if I had to say it as a joke, I would say the first word strike. No, obviously there are a lot of strikes going on in France. No, I would say it's diverse because compared to England or the States, we have a lot of different political parties who have, I wouldn't say majority, but they have a lot of power, and it's not two one left and one right wing party who just dominate the whole political spectrum of France. If my count is good, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, around 6 or 7 parties who kind of dominate the political spectrum of France. So diverse, I think, is a pretty good word. I mean, I could stick up to strikes because it's something that we see quite often. Even I, as I'm from Paris, we see a lot of strikes going on every time. Whether, whenever there's a new law going on, there always seems to have strikes about it. Sometimes I think it's understandable. Sometimes I wonder why they do it. And third one, that's a good one. A third one, I would say presidential.
Mhm.
Presidential, because I think France is one of the rarest country in the world. And countries in Europe where I think the president is as much put on forward compared to other European
Yeah.
countries, especially in terms of power. We know that the French president, whether it was Macron, Sarkozy, or Chirac, or whenever they had a French president, we know that he was the one that was carrying the whole power and the whole image of the country compared to Italy, which is usually
Yeah.
prime minister, Spain, and
And also
England.
the foreign policy the president presides over.
Indeed,
Yeah.
because in France we have two kind of sides. We have the whole government with the prime minister, and the kind of executive with the president. So the government and the ministers, they're more related to national stuff. Whenever something national is related, it's linked to the prime minister and the government. And then whenever there's like international problems or foreign affairs things, it's obviously the president and the minister of foreign affairs.
Brilliant, right. And just to remind our listeners, the president is elected on every 5 years, right? He can only
Indeed.
serve for 2 terms. Okay.
Indeed. He's elected
Yeah.
every 5 years, but that's
Mhm.
only since 2002, because before 2002, it
Mhm.
was even every 7 years.
Mhm.
So Jacques Chirac started in 1995, where he was elected for the first time. So for 7 years, from 95 to 2002. And then when this thing, in French we say it changed from septennat to quinquennat, so from 7 to 5 years. Chirac was elected for a second time, but only for 5 years, so until 2007, when then Nicolas Sarkozy took his place.
Right. Okay. And there hasn't been a female president yet.
Sorry?
There hasn't been a female president in France.
There's been Chirac, 2002, Sarkozy,
Yeah.
2007.
A female president.
What do you mean?
A woman president.
Oh, woman.
No,
Oh,
right.
sorry.
Yeah.
No, indeed. No, sorry.
Yeah.
There's never been
Yeah.
a woman's president in France,
Yeah.
although there is, whether we agree with her or
Yeah.
not, there was
Yes.
a woman, woman politician that is
That is not to be
getting.
mentioned.
Yeah, that is. I mean, no. There is. She is getting a lot of,
Yeah.
votes and
Mm.
percentages in every
Well,
election.
Macron beat her twice.
Macron
Yeah.
beat her twice
Mm.
because I personally believe that she will never be able to win because she carries a name that in France is, as you would say as a joke, do not
Mhm.
pronounce.
Yeah.
But that's why I think, well, we'll probably talk about it later, but this
Yeah.
party, so le Rassemblement National, is
Mhm.
changing now with leaders, with a younger person who has way more power and way more popularity. So he could potentially win
Oh yes.
the elections.
What is his name? Jordan something.
Jordan Bardella. He's
Mm.
32 years old, I think, right now.
Wow.
And yeah, he's considered as the next young generation in French politics. We say that, like, kind of the new generation, although the actual president Macron is not old, he's pretty young for a
Mhm.
politician. We say that the next generation will be Jordan Bardella, so from the Rassemblement National, on the political spectrum called extreme right, of course, party, against Gabriel Attal, the actual current prime minister, who is, I believe, 28 years old. So yeah, two very young politicians who are
Yeah.
already quite big
Indeed.
on the political spectrum. And Jordan Bardella is also the head of the Rassemblement National for the next European elections.
Oh, wow. And
Mm.
does that reflect anything about a possible trend in young people in Europe looking towards right-wing politics more?
Yes, I
Yeah.
think, because let's be quite frank, young people don't care about politics anymore, and
Mhm.
probably me the first one. I used to be really interested about voting and politics. I was into it, this kind of stuff, but for the last 1-2 years, they kind of, I think politicians has left young
Mhm.
people. They don't really care about us anymore. So there's been a decline into young people voting because in 2002,
interesting.
when we had what's it called, Jacques Chirac against Jean-Marie Le Pen at the presidential election, there was a lot of young people in the street, millions, shouting, "We don't want Jean-Marie, get him out," this kind of stuff. And now in 2022, so 20 years after, we have his daughter also in the second round against Macron, and this time young people didn't really go and vote, or they did go vote, but sometimes even for her. So you can clearly tell that there is a change of political opinion in France among the youth. So either
Mhm.
they changed political parties. Before they were kind of left wing, voting for what is still called, but they don't have a lot of power now anymore. The Socialist Party, and now it's more on the two extremes. So you have one side, l'extrême gauche, the extreme left, with La France Insoumise, led by Jean-Luc Mélenchon et Mathilde Panot. And then on the other side, you also have the extreme right, led by Jordan Bardella and Marine Le Pen. So I think the youth is really divided
Yeah.
into two extremes. You also have a part of the youth that goes and vote for Macron, but I think that was more in 2017 when Macron started his whole presidential campaign. He was like, the new candidate that nobody really knew. He was kind of
Mm.
authentic, bringing something original. So that's why a lot of youth went to vote for him. I don't have the exact numbers, but I think it's kind of going down now. They don't have as much trust as they used to
Yeah.
towards the party. La
Right.
République En Marche, yeah, now it's more on the two extremes.
And I don't mean to bring back any traumatic memories, but I believe you did your dissertation on something to do with youth.
No, don't worry, it
Participation in
wasn't traumatic. I did indeed. It was kind of comparing the two. How would you say? Compare the two youth vote between 2002 and 2022. So let's say, I had wait, what? Yeah, 5 presidential election to analyze, but at the end of the day, it was mostly 2002 and 2022, because as we said, in 2002, youth was shouting in the street, demonstrating how angry they were about having Jean-Marie Le Pen at the second round, and you could really tell that they really wanted to go and vote, and they were involved into politics. But now in 2022, especially with the rise of social media, fake news, people just talking I wouldn't say nonsense, but they can say whatever they want and the facts are not checked. So people will see, Jean-Luc Mélenchon did this, and then everyone will believe it, or Marine Le Pen did this and everyone will believe it. So at the end of the day, they just go and vote for political parties just regarding what they have or what they see on social media. So it's a bit of a shame, I think, and I think you shouldn't really be voting on whether you like someone because they did this a specific thing or they didn't do this. Especially, you have to check your facts before. And something quite funny that I did see quite a lot in 2017 and 2022 for Macron election and re-election, it was people saying, "Oh, Macron, he's so good looking. Let's go and vote for him." I was like, "What? You don't vote a president because he's good looking? Sorry."
Well, it seems to suggest some element of continuity to me. This idea that even in 2002, everyone was very much voting, even young people, or at least the way you framed it there, it seems like they were just more voting against Jean-Marie Le Pen rather than sort of voting enthusiastically for Chirac is the way.
Oh yeah, completely.
No,
completely. Jean-Marie Le Pen was blocked by everyone. People were just going to vote for Chirac, not because it was Chirac, but just to block Jean-Marie Le Pen. And to be fair, I think it wasn't as big, because I think in 2002 it was 82 against 18, and in 2017 you did have also the same between Macron and Marine Le Pen, because that was the first time she arrived at the second round. But then in 2022, I can't remember, but I think it was 55-45 between Macron and Le Pen for the second time. So you could tell that this time people didn't really care, or not as much as in 2002, the fact of having a Le Pen at the second round.
I think also we saw sort of in the late 2010s sort of maybe a bit of a rise in sort of further right-wing or perhaps populism politics across Europe. Some might attribute that to, for example, 2016 election in the States sort of bleeding over culturally. And I'm curious, do you think the upcoming 2024 election between Trump and Biden, presumably, do you think that will impact French politics, maybe sort of starting a sort of another sort of cultural wave of maybe a bit more populist support? Would that sort of help Le Pen? Or maybe do you think if Biden does particularly well, that sort of maybe gets people to sort of back Macron as they sort of attach these two U.S. politicians and their sort of cultural surrounding onto French politicians?
I mean, I think that whoever wins this year in America between Biden and Trump, as you said, very likely, I don't think it will particularly affect the French politics, because I think this idea of having two different, complete opposite sides amongst youth is something that you can see pretty much everywhere. Because at the end of the day, between extreme left, which is kind of more the woke people who
the tofu eating wokerati.
Sorry?
I was quoting a British politician. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, it's more like woke aspect, like vote for extreme left, and then more like, as you said, populist. The reason of populism is something that we can see everywhere. So we're gonna be able to see it probably in America, but not as much, because the extreme left is more, what's his name, Bernie Sanders?
Yeah.
And this year they don't really seem to have anyone representing that side. So I would predict, honestly, youth not going to vote much this year, because there have been, as far as I can see, I don't have the impression they've been really particularly impressed with Joe Biden. I might be wrong, but I don't have the impression they've been particularly impressed by Joe Biden. So either they go and vote for Trump, which I hope not, or they just don't go and vote, but you can clearly tell that the amount of youth that vote is in the world, whether it's States, France, or even England or Italy, is particularly going down. And
Yeah.
that's something obviously we can talk about later, but I don't believe that whenever I hear politicians say, oh, youth people don't go and vote, that's not good, no.
It's
Why?
Yeah.
Why should we be, why should it be compulsory to go and vote?
why should we vote for someone who doesn't represent us?
There you are.
Doesn't represent our interests.
There you are.
Yeah.
So I don't think it should be us voters to go and vote for anyone, because I always hear, especially our parents' generation, saying, "Oh, you should vote wherever, but you should vote. At least the person that comes the closest to your ideas." And no, and I don't think so, because I think it's more the politician who should come and get us, rather than us voters, youth, go to politics and just vote for whoever. And this is why the kind of two extreme side have managed, especially I'm talking on the specific case of France, have managed to go so high, because they found ways to convince youth to go and vote, especially using social media. A perfect example is Jean-Luc Mélenchon. During the last election in 2022, he used a lot of TikTok, which is, whether you like his ideas or not, it's that kind of stuff.
Effective.
Yeah, it's effective. It's that kind of stuff that leads, youth to go and vote. And I think Jordan Bardella will be doing the same this year for the European election. He will be doing the same as well, very likely in 2027, because I do not see Marine Le Pen going again in 2027. If she's intelligent enough, I think she should probably leave Bardella to do, although obviously I do not agree with their ideas. But yeah, I think politicians come and get us to go and vote, rather than hearing, oh, you young people don't go and vote.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that point. I think some people might overlook that in many cases not voting is a vote in a way. It sort of is a way for people to express they're really dissatisfied with the political system.
Because you're right. People say, oh, young people are not interested about politics. No, I don't think so, because all these camps that you see right now about pro-Palestine.
There's one literally down the road.
Yeah, I think it just
Yeah, there's
went
literally
off
just
that
down here
this
next to
year.
it, yeah. Whether it's in the UK, in the States, or even in France, people are interested about politics. They want to change stuff. Whether you agree with them or not, they are doing stuff. And let's be frankly honest, I think they're even doing more than actual politicians. So they're interested and they want to do stuff. They want to, change. But the actual politicians that are in power right now, whether it's in England, in France, the state, Italy, wherever, they're not representative enough of what young people want, whether it's about, I don't know, immigration, or, I don't know, climate change, security. That's like the topics that mostly are talked about during the French debates, or, because they don't really showcase enough a way for young people to go and vote, because we talked about it before the show a bit as a joke, but it's kind of true. Something that I personally hear a lot is pensions. Why young people would care about pensions right now? It's in literally 40 years, probably for them, even 50 years. So why, if you talk about probably, I don't know, 60% of the time of pensions during a debate, why would young people care about it?
Yeah, and just kind of talking about generational kind of relations. What do you think young people think about old people protesting against raising the retirement age from 62 to 64? Do you think old people are just lazy?
No, I mean, it's quite difficult for me to judge, because obviously I'm not at that point yet of my life. But I think there's a good balance to have between the two. I think both sides are pretty much quite extreme, whether it's from the government, who kind of does everything a bit, very suddenly. And I don't know, then on the other side, you could say they could be like, I don't know, lazy or something. But I think their protest, I completely understand their point. Their protest is reasonable, although I would also understand, because it's true, a lot of people work really hard, and, they have what we call in France un métier pénible, a difficult job.
Yeah.
Even actually, it's more hard than difficult. And so I could get them. I understand that when they say, we don't want to work until that much. But then on the other side, you do have to think, and that's what the government says. everyone is getting older and older
Mm.
every year, new generation. So you have to change at one point.
I've looked at it's something I can't remember exactly because it's sort of a bit variable, some of the figures, but it's something between I think 15 and 19% of France's GDP is pension
Related to pension. Yeah.
fund, which is massive. 'Cause if you look at like any other European country other than like Greece and Italy, it's like way bigger than.
Well, Greece and Italy are nearly bankrupt.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's part of the problem, I think, and that's part of the reason Macron, tried to bring these reforms in, is to make it more affordable. But then it's sort of also caused a massive backlash, which I think is quite interesting.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's a good idea, I think, at the beginning for Macron to change this kind of stuff, from 62 to 64. But you need to kind of have a transition moment, because every time that they're trying to implement these new laws, at least for Macron since 2017, most of them are quite good, I would say. Or, I mean, they have a sense, they have a meaning, but they're just not done in a way that it could be properly effective for people. You need to have a moment of transition for people to get used to it, I guess.
Yeah.
And also find ways to compensate anything that, they could be, they would need in a way. Another example I thought about the other day is in Paris, the mayor of Paris, Anne Hidalgo, now is trying to get rid of all the cars in Paris because she wants a less polluted city, which is a fair point.
Yeah.
And I think she's right, because we have so many transports and buses and metros, which it's true. At the end of the day, a car, you don't really need it in Paris. But you also have to think about the people that come out of Paris, that come into Paris, to work every day. They go out, so they need their car. So before blocking cars getting into Paris, you need to have the options available, which
or they need car parks by metro stations
or
or
car
something,
parks
so
or
they can,
metro station, whatever. You need solution, which they seem to be working on it, but it's still not available. So you can't just block the cars now and not give any available solution. Just block the cars when you will have the solution. So like that, people will be able to come into Paris with the metros or more car park outside of Paris or this kind of stuff. But yeah, you need solutions, because obviously otherwise people are going to go in the street and go on strikes and everything, because I think they're not doing that. I really don't believe that the strikes are here to be annoying or, to be, annoying towards anyone. I think they're really there to define that point. They live a kind of life that I personally, don't live. And I don't think I would never be able to understand their point of view unless I live their life. So, and I think politicians is the same. They have a kind of, very generous and happy life compared to the people who usually go in strike. So obviously sometimes it's a bit exaggerated, but it's just, honestly, the media represented as such a big thing, when on the contrary, I think it's such a small percentage of people who kind of exaggerate about it. At the end of the day, I think the people who go on strikes really go for the need. We could talk also about the methods and how sometimes I think it's a bit too repetitive and it's a bit useless. But the actual reason of why they go there is, I think quite important for them.
So maybe we observe that it's more the sort of process of policy making than policies themselves, which cause public discontent in France.
What do you mean?
Like, it's more the process by which decisions are made, like the pension reform sort of not being sort of publicly voted on, or also the content of it.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. When people go and protest in the street, they always say like, oh, we've never really had the chance to, give our opinion about it, this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, if you have to ask the population your opinion about everything, it would be. Sorry, thank God I blocked myself. It was going to be a nightmare. So, I mean, I at the end of the day, obviously we talked about whether you agree or not, with politicians, and they're not really representative. There is a parliament. There is MPs.
It's proportional representation as well.
It's proportional representation as well. You have a whole kind of, different political spectrum. So obviously you could talk about maybe how, I wouldn't really maybe use the word corrupted, but, you can talk about sometimes how it's a bit, weird.
Broken.
Broken.
Yeah.
But you have MPs, you have a Senate. They're here to vote the laws, and these people don't come from nowhere. We personally, as voters, we elected them, so we
Yeah.
elected them to go and vote these laws. So at the end of the day, I kind of there's no answer. There's no answer to
Yeah.
yes or no. But on one side, we've elected these people, so we have to let them, do their job in a way. But then on the other side, I kind of want to say, okay, we've let Macron being elected a second time, although there's been a lot of problems, and he was, I wouldn't say hated, but a lot of people really, really didn't like it, and he's not representative of, what the French population really is right now. But that's how the system works. So at the end of the day, you can't contradict the system unless you find new solutions.
That's really interesting. And just going back to the word broken there, how do you think that compares to the UK? Because you get commentators like Rory Stewart, writing a book arguing why the UK parliamentary system is broken. Like, how broken do you think France is?
Every
do you-
politics
every
systems
all
are broken, I
politics.
think.
Let's try to-
Bold.
Okay.
Huh?
Bold statement, yeah.
Bold statement.
I mean,
I think
it's
it's
kind of
valid.
true.
Yeah.
Right now, politics. Honestly,
Mhm.
how would you say? Maybe there was one country, but unfortunately she
Yeah.
left. That was kind of not broken. I would
Yeah.
probably name New Zealand.
Yeah.
Costa Rica, apparently, as a country, I've never had the chance to go there, but apparently Costa Rica is also a very,
Mhm.
democratic and non-broken, what we would call country. Scandinavia is also known to have, non-broken. Is known to be one of the most
Mhm.
democratic system in the world. I mean, Norway is literally always in the top of like freedom of speech, most democratic countries, this kind of stuff. So
Happiness even as well.
Huh?
Happiness,
as
yeah.
well, yeah. Which then obviously,
Yeah.
goes on to see how people are happy and if they're gonna go and vote or not. So, yeah.
Yeah, for context, our Norwegian foreign policy analyst is in the room right now. And he's being pointed to.
Alright,
Yeah. I forgot we're not filmed actually.
I've got one more but just before we take a song break. Obviously French elections have both to the parliament and in the presidency, they have the 2-round system. So to what extent do you think that is an effective electoral system? Is it working? Is it achieving the right things, or what would you replace it with otherwise?
I think it's honestly one of the best system that you could potentially find. And I'm not saying that because I'm French. I could criticize a lot of stuff about French politics, but I think considering all the other system that we call in France semi-presidentiel, so half presidential, I think it's probably one of the most democratic ones because you have the chance to elect. The first round, you vote for whoever you want, and it gives you have a whole choice of political spectrum. Whether it's extreme right with La France Insoumise, socialist, Parti Socialiste, les Verts with the Greens, center with Macron, right, les Républicains, and then extreme right. You kind of have two parties, Rassemblement National and Reconquête avec Éric Zemmour. So people just go and vote, for whoever they want. And then in the second round, you vote. You need a majority at one point because there is, how much I say, 6 or 7 parties. So you will never be able to, get 50% with that. So in terms of presidential election, it might seem maybe as undemocratic because it doesn't represent. When you get to the second round, well, let's take the last example, 2022, Macron versus Le Pen. Obviously, all the kind of left-wing people didn't really have a choice. They either didn't vote, like myself, or they voted for Macron to block Le Pen. So that's kind of a blocking the democratic aspect. But then when it comes to parliamentary elections, it gives you a whole range of different choices. Because if you go in the UK, as much as the Lib Dem, the Greens, and the different parties exist, it's obviously always between Labour and Conservatives. Whilst in France, you can have La France Insoumise, which has quite a lot of power in Parliament. The Socialist Party used to, I think, unfortunately, not as much as before. Les Républicains as well, the right wing party, Rassemblement National, center with Macron. Like there's a whole different range of politics available in parliamentary rather than just having a kind of battle between left and right.
Okay.
Very
Excellent.
nice.
Well, all right then. We're gonna take a quick song break. Okay. Welcome back to External Affairs. So I want to jump into.
I
We've.
was singing to this song. It's so good. Sorry.
I know you're enjoying it. We've talked. We've referenced quite a lot about immigration, pensions, some of the policies associated with Macron. So I want to look at Front National, or whatever they're called now. They changed their name.
Rassemblement National, which is fun. Fun. I don't know if it's really fun, but fact about it, they were called Front National. I think they changed in 2002, if I'm not wrong, but I'm not sure. Until 2019 or 2020 to go back to Rassemblement National, which was the name that Jean-Marie Le Pen installed when they created the party. So in terms of image, I think it's probably the baddest move that they've done, considering the whole image that Jean-Marie Le Pen has. So, and especially considering that his daughter Marine is being trying to say, oh yeah, I'm trying to detach myself from my father and everything. I think that was a really silly move.
But yeah, that my French isn't very good, so I'm not going to try and pronounce. But yeah,
Rassemblement National.
Marie Le Pen's party, anyway.
Actually, no, she's not the president anymore. Jordan Bardella is the new president.
Jordan Bardella.
Yeah.
But that group, that sort of wing of politics, obviously, they're doing fairly well in the last couple of presidential elections. Where do you think that support has derived from? Has it been backlash to immigration primarily? Has it been backlash to sort of Macron and his popularity? Has it been, I don't know, sort of backlash to social issues maybe? Where do you think that's come from?
It's been backlash by social media. Fake news, social media, because, yes, I think you're right. Immigration is probably the biggest one because that's, let's be frankly honest, that's the only thing they talk about. Social media. Sorry, immigration. I personally have never heard Rassemblement National talking about global warming. I've never heard them talk about pensions, or at least when they were talking about it, it was just when they were contradicting Macron. So I think immigration is literally the only thing they have in mind, and especially going towards Muslim and Islam. Everything started in 2015 when we had, unfortunately, the two terrorist attacks, Charlie Hebdo in January 2015 and les attaques du Bataclan in November 2015. So that's kind of the moment where everything started rising, towards Islamophobic behavior in France. There've been, I think, it's horrible to say, but I think Rassemblement National is quite good in terms of image and showing things that obviously are fake news, but they always do everything possible to go against Islam and Muslim people, talking about them like if they were terrorists, like everywhere. So they're doing it in a way so that people are scared. People, they're saying like, oh, immigration, they're coming, they're gonna, take your jobs, and they're gonna, take off everything that you need in France, blah, blah, blah. It's all their fault, which is the kind of behavior I think that happened as well with Brexit. Not exactly about Islam. Brexit was more about migration.
Yeah, it wasn't as kind of overt and loud, I guess. In Brexit, it was sort of more the implication, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, Brexit was more migration rather, and France is more about Islam. But I think it just creates an atmosphere of fear then around France, which there are some policies that Macron did that also didn't really help, because he has, how do you say in English, Home Secretary, Gérard Darmanin, who doesn't help in that kind of aspect because he's considered as Islamophobic as well. And so that's why a lot of people who were with Macron, or even if they were against him, really went towards extreme right and Rassemblement National. And then, as we mentioned before, you have the opposite, which is people defending, Muslim or defending, freedom
Yeah.
or this kind of stuff that went towards extreme left,
And away from Macron,
And
away from
because
Macron
he
as well.
Yeah.
sort of tried to do that balance.
and maybe we just need to remind our listeners of the significance of Le Rassemblement National, right? Because I think they won maybe 31% of the vote in recent parliamentary elections, and Marine Le Pen, she was second place, just behind Macron on 2 occasions. So it's-
I mean,
yeah,
in
Yeah.
terms of party, she was second, but thank God she came third actually in the parliamentary
third,
election
okay.
because Macron came first, and the left, who was reunited all together, called La NUP, came second. If I'm not wrong, I might have to check that number again. But yeah, she did come third indeed.
right. And can we just also just go back a bit in time to give context about the growth of the right-wing movement in France? Because you have Marine Le Pen's father, right? Jean-Marie Le Pen.
It was
Yes.
in 1970 something.
Okay,
I think
right.
that
And
he created
yeah.
the party. If I'm not
I
sure.
believe it coincided with the fascist or neo-fascist party in Italy as well, right? Like the Flame or something. I'm just exhausting my A-level French knowledge. Yeah.
No, I
Yeah.
think you're right. I'm just trying to remember the dates,
Yeah.
but yeah, he did indeed
It's-
go together with
Yeah.
one of the fascist party, which obviously
Right.
that's what
Yeah.
gave him this image. And in 2002, that's when he started, being quite popular, I would say, after arriving second at the presidential election. Yes.
Yeah. And sorry,
Yeah.
Alex.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would like to perhaps transition a bit to the EU, as that's quite a big part in France. As since Merkel left German politics, Macron has kind of taken or at least attempted to take a leadership role of the EU and try and transition it. What do you think Macron's goals are with the EU and how he sees
mean-
France's future in the EU and stuff?
You say that he's tried. I think he definitely has managed to take the leadership of the EU, because since Angela Merkel left, there isn't any particular leader or anyone around the EU that manages to be as powerful, or at least also in terms of image, than Angela Merkel used to be. So Macron has definitely taken the lead. What's his name? Before La Meloni in Italy, there was the prime minister who also kind of was with the EU. He wasn't bad. He has a good image, but unfortunately he left now. And I forgot his name. But yeah, now with La Meloni is going to be really complicated. But yeah, Macron has definitely taken the lead with France. And although obviously I don't agree with a lot of his ideas, I think it's quite reassuring, I would say, that Macron, that his ideas and his policies about the EU is one of the rarest thing I like about him, because on the contrary of people who wanted to have Brexit, he knows that the EU is a ship that's falling down, is broken, but he's trying everything possible to repair it. So he's one of the rarest politicians, I think, in France, and let's be frankly honest, also in Europe, that knows that everything is broken right now in the EU, that needs change, and is trying everything, to change. So is he doing the good policies? Is he doing good stuff about it? I don't really have any ideas. I can't really judge about it, but at least he's trying. So that's a good aspect.
And sort of further looking at the EU, Chinese President Xi Jinping recently visited Serbia, Hungary, and France. China's made it clear they want cooperation and sort of increased relations with Europe. So I'm curious what your view on potentially closer Chinese-French ties would be.
It's all economical at that
Right.
point. It's all economical at that point, because I think China just wants to have a good relationship with France in order to export, I think, all their products that they do in China. And obviously in the context of the Ukrainian-Russian war, there's, we know that China is pretty much very allied with Russia, but in the same time, China needs to be clever enough to not, be against France as well, or any powerful countries in the world, so they can live literally economically. Because I think I don't have the exact numbers, but I think China economy lives with the exportation of their products.
world's biggest importer and second or third biggest exporter of products.
I'm
think
not
second, right?
surprised. Like
Yeah.
nothing to do with France, but you know, whenever I hear people saying, "Oh, Putin is going to use the nuclear war," it is scary. I agree, but we have to think about how China is an ally of Russia, and he knows that. I'm going to say it in a very direct way, but he knows that if the world is going, out of nowhere and is completely destroyed by the nuclear war, whether from Russia or the States, China won't be able to live anymore because they won't be able to export anymore. So I think China is one of the first country to block Russia from using the nuclear war. So that's why, obviously, it's scary.
Yeah.
But in the same time, we mustn't listen to the media who just want to scare us all the time, and we have to think, reasonably, because it's not our generation. I don't think any of us were born at that point, but in 1990, from what I understood, at the end of the Cold War, there was, what's his name, Elsky, or whoever was the first president of Russia. I can't remember his name exactly.
Yeltsin.
Huh?
Yeltsin,
yeah. He was doing some, nuclear war threats. Although in the end he never did.
Yeah.
So
he actually had quite warm relations with the West as well.
Yeah, I mean, even without relations or anything, at that point, you need to. You just. How can I say it in a nice way? I think all these leaders, whether it's Russia, Israel, states, whatever, they just want to show to the world how powerful they are. That's a good way to say. Yeah, how powerful they are. And I think by threatening the world with the nuclear, and Iran as well, by threatening the world with nuclear power, is the only way to show to their voters, of course, to their people, and to the world that they are powerful. But they know. I'm not trying to be naive, but they know that if they use the nuclear bomb, then their country is going to be destroyed, which I highly doubt they want to have that. So. Yeah, it's just a question of who has the biggest.
Sort of just circling back to the China question, you sort of discussed the economic benefits, and I'd certainly agree with that. But do you think it's, when you see initiatives such as the Belt and Road Initiative, do you think it is purely economic and it's for mutual benefit, or do you think there's maybe bigger sort of great power politics at play in places like Europe or Africa?
From China or from France?
I'd say from China into places such as France or Africa, for example.
Or French-speaking former French colonies in Africa.
Yeah, exactly. Sort of.
I mean, yeah, it's purely economical. I think China definitely wants to just implement themselves in Africa to be able to, produce a lot of what they're already producing, but they know that the raw material is in Africa, so they need to be the first people to go there. And then, as you mentioned, a lot of French-speaking countries in Africa, they kind of starting to be ally with China, because I think I wouldn't say they're angry, but I think because of the
anti-French sentiment and anti-French sentiment.
And that's the thing. There's an anti-French sentiment because of the colonization history. So France is the only country right now that I think is able to kind of block this China implementation in Africa because of the French-speaking country. But instead of saying to the people, "Oh, don't go to China because they're the bad people," this kind of stuff, just instead of being moral to people and tell them, "Oh, we shouldn't do that. You guys shouldn't do that," just try and find ways to help them. Because I think French-speaking countries, whether it's Senegal, Ivory Coast, or any other country, they just want new solutions. A lot of them are very, very poor. And China I think, has been very clever enough to understand how to give them what they wanted, which is money. And in return, the countries give them all this material they need to produce their product.
That's a very diplomatic observation. Yeah. And just to speak more on the significance
Always
of
try to be as diplomatic as I can.
to speak more on the sort of African side of things, there's a large African diaspora in France. Is that true? Like Senegalese people who are of Senegalese origin in other countries.
You mean that?
In France, they live in France. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Definitely. I would even say, or at least that's the thing. It's quite complicated to know what is real true or not
Yeah.
unless you really look at the exact numbers, because the media, they will show you that there's only Algerian and Moroccan people in the streets, which I don't
Yeah.
think is true. There's a lot of Italians, there's a lot of, as you said, Senegal, a lot of, just people coming all around the world to France, because it is a beautiful country. Some things have changed, but it is a really beautiful country. So yeah, I can't really tell, to be honest, because the only thing that we see in the media right now, or at least in specific channels, is they're saying, oh, all these immigrants from Algeria, Morocco, and the Islam is coming to be implemented in France, which at the end of the day, I would believe it really represents a small percentage of the actual migration to France. It is a problem, but I wouldn't say is probably as much as a problem as the media are covering it. So yeah.
And sort of just looking to Africa a bit more. On a visit to Kenya last month, French Foreign Minister Stéphane Séjourné said he wanted to build what he called balanced partnerships in the region. Sort of given the historic and contemporary role of France in Africa, how do you see such future ambitions unfolding, especially with sort of an increasing presence of China or Russia in the region?
But that's the thing. It goes back to this anti-French sentiment that I think a lot of French countries have now because of the colonization history. As much as Stéphane Séjourné will try really hard to try and implement French help into Africa, I'm not a big specialist in this area, but if they just come into the moralization people saying, you guys shouldn't go to China or Russia or anyone, it's not going to be helpful. On the contrary, they're going to go to them even more. You need to try and find a solution to help them, because the only thing they want is to be helped, to grow economically, to have money, because they're really, a lot of them are just really poor countries.
Yeah, and just quickly tying back into kind of what we've been talking about with China and Macron's stance in the EU post Merkel kind of stepping down, do you think it's a bit of a juxtaposition how he has kind of taken a role as the king of the EU, as you could say,
Definitely, yeah.
but perhaps increasingly become quite isolated and out of step with the rest of Europe in his approach to some foreign policy? As James was saying, we saw him meet with Xi kind of days, I think it was the same day that the Ministry of Defence here was under cyber attack from China. I mean, meeting Xi in itself.
Completely. Oh yeah, no, completely.
I mean, with Putin as well. I think he met Putin.
No, completely. I think it's really good to try and defend the interest of the EU and try to gather as many people, as possible to not, have the EU disappear. But at the end of the day, you also have to come back to this aspect that the EU is a collaborative thing. You need to be able to work between all the countries. So if you have Macron on one side that, let's be quite frankly, does everything and consider himself as the king of the EU, it will never be able to work, because then on the other side, other countries like the Netherlands recently, Italy with Giorgia Meloni, Spain is kind of still staying kind of left wing, but Germany as well, AfD, is it AfD? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Spain, Vox, the extreme right and populism. So this anti-European, rose will be coming will be rising even more during the years if Macron still continues to work like that. Which you don't even have to go outside of the EU to see that thing. You can literally just see it in France already. If Bardella and Marine Le Pen, they don't want the Frexit. They don't want to get out of the EU, because they understood now that with Brexit it was a complete disaster. But they do still have this sentiment of like being anti-EU, anti-Europe. They want to change stuff.
They're
So
actually quite socialist in a way, like left-wing economically.
Who?
The Rassemblement National. Apparently.
I'm really bad into economics,
Really?
not gonna lie.
Okay.
So I
Yeah.
don't really know that much, but yeah, I did
Yeah.
hear that. I did hear there's someone.
Yeah, I suppose that makes sense. They kind of reject the free market policies of the EU, and they kind of regret the impact of globalization. Would you agree, Finn? You think?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, there's been a big pushback against Macron for his sort of globalist
Yeah.
stances, very sort of pro-free trade,
Mhm.
liberal economics. I think a lot of people have been angry or
Yeah.
dissatisfied with that.
Mhm.
But I don't know to what extent, Marie Le Pen or sort of
Yeah.
the right in France represents an alternative to that.
Right.
Well, the problem with
Yeah.
the extreme right and Marine Le Pen, sorry, the Rassemblement National, is that they kind of change their policy according to what voters want.
Right.
Yeah. That's
Which is-
populism. right?
Yeah.
There you
Yeah.
are. This is the exact definition of populism. So you can't really know what they want,
Mhm.
really, or if they really want to change. Because whether you agree with him or not, at least Macron tries to find ways to change stuff. He might do it in a weird way. He
Mm.
might do it, maybe in not.
Yeah.
I think Macron's probably one of the least diplomatic president I've ever seen. He just goes in a very direct way, and he doesn't think about having solutions, like transition solution. But at least he tries to do something, and he's quite reasonable. He knows the consequences, maybe this kind of stuff. Le Rassemblement National, and you could say the same thing about the extreme left, like La France Insoumise. They just say what the people want to hear, obviously, which, historically speaking, has been quite dangerous. So now they think something in 2024. What are they going to think in 2027 for the presidential election? What are they going to think in 2032? Like, you'll never know, because that, as you said, that's the definition of populism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that was a really insightful discussion about French politics.
Yeah.
And as
Do you wanna do the future bit now?
tradition,
Yes.
yeah. What has been your highlights here at the university, and do you have any future ambitions?
Oh, my highlights. Oh, that's
Yeah.
a big that's a big one.
You've participated in maybe
think
how many societies?
We could fill a whole episode with highlights, probably.
No, I would say my highlight will be just in one word: societies. Societies, and actually, societies and people. Being able to organize so many events and meet so many amazing, genuinely great people here at the uni that have become some of them my closest friends, and I honestly, I really wonder if I'll be able to meet that many great people in the future. So
And did you
yeah.
do a master's just to stay another year here?
maybe
Right.
I don't know.
You're
Shall I
doing-
reveal it?
You're studying. You did international relations.
I did 3 years of international
Very
relations.
good choice.
And-
then,
And
Yeah.
now I'm doing
entrepreneurship?
masters entrepreneurship and innovation management. Yeah.
okay, yeah. So, what are your kind of career ambitions then?
Yeah.
If you- yeah.
Event
Events, yeah.
organization, because after when we organized Exhibition Song Contest last year in 2023 for the first time, I realized how much I'd
Yeah.
never had that kind of feeling before,
Yeah.
of happiness towards organizing such a big event, spending
Mhm.
1 year on it, where so many people coming, so many people performing, and it came out as a positive event. So I was really happy about it.
Is it like a chairman for FIFA or for Eurovision that you could take the role? Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say no if someone
Yeah.
tells me, but I think I'll probably need experience before that.
Really? Okay. Yeah. Great. Any final remarks? for the panel? Well, thank you very much for joining us, Matt.
Yeah, but thank you very
It's a
much.
Great pleasure to
It's
have
been-
you.
Merci beaucoup
Hopefully,
à tous. No,
Hopefully
thank you so
sounds
much. It was a real pleasure. If any of you want to listen, obviously do go and listen to External Affairs about politics, or if you're also interested about cultural stuff, just in general, come and listen to Festivita, because we will have soon an episode about Philippines and an episode about Norway with Mr. Sir Alexander here in the room.
Brilliant. Thanks very much for joining us.
All right. Yes, thank you very much. So to play us off, I'm gonna need Alex to read out this one.
Which one's that?
Nendes narkotikum bedest ATM midagi kulmidagi by vis minut and pull up.
It's a Norwegian song.
Is that a Norwegian song?
Estonian.
It's
Oh,
a
Estonian.
Estonian
Estonian.
Eurovision song.
Oh, is it
Sticking
the
to our-
Eurovision? Oh, wow.
Yes.
Estonia and France are two different countries, Alex.
Yeah, but Alex wanted it on.
Now I
and,
want everyone in the studio to actually do the dance that they did
From
at
the
Eurovision.
geography when I asked you to.
There you go. Alrighty, we'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us.